All right, this episode, I got a chance to sit down and have a good conversation with a gentleman named Kelly S. Worden. He is a longtime practitioner of several different martial arts. He was certified with the Datu title by Remy Presas and is one of the earliest people to earn that particular distinction. He's worked with military combatives and even designed one of the defensive systems being used by our special forces today. So it's a pretty cool guy. He's got a lot of really interesting stories. He's had some really harrowing experiences in his life, and through all of that stuff, he's turned that into his system, which is the natural spirit method. And that's a blend of his Arnis and his Jeet Kune Do training and a bunch of reality stuff that he's gone through in his life. So he's a down-to-earth guy. He's direct and right to the point. There's a little bit of language going on in this podcast, so if you got little ones around, just as a fair warning, it's got a little bit more language than we normally have, but we've taken care of most of the harsh stuff. So anyway, hope you guys enjoy this one, and we'll get right to the show. Have a good one. All right, welcome to the Artists of Motion podcast. Today's guest is Mr. Kelly S. Worden. He is the founder of the Natural Spirit International, the Worden Defense, and longtime instructor of military combatives. I want to welcome and thank you for being on our show today, sir. It is truly my honor. Mr. Worden, how are you today?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to get an opportunity to share some martial theory and some personal reflections with you.
That's exactly what this show is about. We want to hear what your story has been. So since everybody out there may or may not know who you are and where you've been, I did some research, and there's quite an extensive biography on your website. And when I did some cross-checking, I think you kind of downplayed it a little bit. So first thing I like to do on the show is just ask everybody who's on our show, tell us a little bit about your background. Who are you? Where you've been? What are you doing today? What makes you happy to be in martial arts?
Oh man, I often say when I'm teaching and lecturing, and sometimes it's just for shock value, but hey, if it wasn't for martial arts, I'd probably be in prison or dead. And people always go, "What?" And I say, "Well, keep in mind I'm from Tacoma, Washington." But there's a stigma about Tacoma, and before the Crips and the Bloods, there was the bikers and car clubs, and my older brother, was a part of both of those, and so about age 12, 13, that's what I was getting exposed to, and man, I just loved the scooters, and I loved scooter chicks, man. I mean, 12, 13 years old, you get done with your paper route at, I don't know, midnight. And, it was kind of fun because, my mom and dad, former, they're old school military from World War II. And, so I would stay up late and watch The Wolfman and Frankenstein and, Creature from the Black Lagoon, stuff like that. And then go, hey, the papers are at the box. I'm going to go deliver them, and then I could sleep in the morning. And it seemed logical to them because of waking up a kid in the morning to do his 6 o'clock responsibility after watching monster movies all night probably was harder than, that's where the glass of water came in. It's time to get up for the third time, so you got a splash of water. And I would get up and watch these movies, and then I'd go deliver newspapers. And since it was kind of a neighborhood, biker club, that type of stuff, there would be somebody within reasonable proximity of a bicycle ride that had a scooterhead party at their house. So I would sneak on in, and I knew who to kind of elbow up to so they wouldn't slap me and throw me back and say, hey, you need to get out of here, but I didn't get to enjoy some of that party time. I wasn't drinking or anything. I was just like watching the action, and sometimes it seemed like it was like Thunderdome inside a house. A lot of crazy stuff back then. And, I like to say when bikers were bikers, but, kind of the pirate mentality. But, through that gave me common sense, how to avoid, recognizing a threat realizing that people are totally unpredictable and violence can break out at any time, man or women. I mean, you're protecting your turf in that environment, and for the most part, you don't have to answer to anybody. You have to answer to a president of a club, or if you're totally wrong, you're going to get the boots from multiple directions. And so, hey, you know, if you want to be the badass, you had to conquer, you know, whoever was there from a different club, and that's when the throwdown happened. And wow, you know, yeah, you definitely know how to. I guess evasive mobility would be a good description of when you're a little fart like that, running around in a room full of giants and shit starts flying. Well, hey, you better be quick on your feet and know which direction to run.
Sounds reasonable.
So I've always, yeah, I think I learned from some of the best when it came down to mobility, improvised weapons, setting up, you know, how to turn a table, how to turn a chair when you're either engaging or you're evading, you know, that type of stuff. So a lot of fun stuff growing up. And then there again, it was life as usual, riding a bicycle, playing football, playing baseball at the boys' clubs, things like that. Doing some boxing at the boys' club. That was all about what I did. And then, you know, when the old man was drinking, how to get the hell out of the house, and you know, when to go back after he's cooled down. You know, so life was crazy. There was no such thing as you know, child abuse. That was called discipline. And you know, anyway, moving on. What else you got, brother?
That's childhood and learning how to, you know, get in and out of situations. So when did you start training martial arts wise?
Well, you know, boxing was first, and boxing was just a part of being down at the boys' club. And then, you know, that's kind of was my escape hatch. You know, I mean, drinking was part of life for the old man coming out of World War II, and there was no such thing as post-traumatic stress. You know, he came back home on the Queen Mary with tuberculosis. He had 6 kids. He couldn't work. You know, you get meds for, you know, a number of things, and then you mix it with homebrew. You know, he made his own beer and he made his own wine, and so it wasn't like he was ever going to run out of a ruthless buzz. And so, yeah, I hung out at the boys' club a lot. Boxing was the introduction, and you know, a lot of times it was just like, hey man, you know, I had a bone to pick with you, and well, let's go, you know. Or the basketball coach would stop everything and throw 2 guys in the ring, and you know, it wasn't like you know, classically trained or anything. I did get a lot of coaching from my dad, and I got beat up a lot from my older brother, or at least slapped around. And so you learn how to, you know, address those factors. I like to laugh and go, there was a redhead kid, and he had this cock eye. His name was Donnie Pease, and, you know, tough little guy, football, you know, especially football, but he played all the sports. He was reasonably good. Donnie, my pit bull's in the background, but Donnie just dropped his head and hit you with windmills, and I'd be like, wow, you know, just blow you over if you're trying to, you know, box, you know, jab, cross, that type of thing, and here comes some guy just burrowing in. Now today, I realize he was a Choila foot practitioner in disguise.
Nice.
But, yeah, you know, now you know a little bit about martial arts. You can classify the bestiality or the beast coming out in these little farts when they're kicking your ass, you know. And if you never had your ass kicked and you're that good a martial artist, well, you know, I think you just need to be beat up so you can realize what you're instilling in others, and you'll stop being a bully, because that's usually what happens. Is people are bullies because they've never been punked off. They've never had their ass handed to them, you know. that type of stuff. So that's the beauty of martial arts. You come to start to realize that, a skilled individual can come in many shapes and sizes, and you can get your ass handed to you at any point in time, and barroom brawls and classical styles. I wrote years ago when I was writing for Full Contact magazine. I wrote The Rare American Art of Bikeroo Quan Gun Jitsu, and it was really to address the fact that stylized practitioners sometimes have a misconception because they only do their dojo sparring in their dojo. They don't go out and raid somebody else's school, and it's not that aspect. And they don't go out, maybe rocking and rolling at nightclubs on Friday night and Saturday night and in the neighborhood they ain't supposed to be with about 3 of their other buddies, and that's how shit happens, and somebody recognizes you, and next thing you know, you got some game going on in the parking lot or in the bathroom, or hey guys, I tell you what, I don't like that creep, so when I go in the bathroom, just keep the door closed. Somebody's coming out, and we'll find out who. And so, it is about survival in your hood and establishing some level of dominance in that environment, and that's part of growing up, part of the lifestyle, depending on where your neighborhood is. I didn't have a chauffeur by any stretch of the imagination or a bodyguard. I just had people that would watch my back when we'd go out. And that was more or less a natural element of who we are and what we did.
So a lot of street experience that way.
Yeah, pretty much. And, we didn't even see it as that because, that just became a good term to talk about after later on, hey man, are you streetwise? And geez, I often say, the kids are the true ninjas, because we can get in our car and drive down the street to the grocery store and see that it's a little bit thuggish, and say, well, maybe we ought to go out to, a better, better neighborhood and do our shopping there. And kids don't get that opportunity. They gotta roam wherever they live, and that can be real tough. And so it's making judgment calls on kids. You're either going to be as tough as the neighborhood, or you're going to be the candy ass that gets his ass handed to him every time he turns around, until you make a decision that this ain't going to happen anymore. So, that's part of that evolution. So, I guess it is the responsibility of the older brother and some of the friends of the family, and, even the old man, to toughen you up when you come home with a bloody nose. Well, you know what? It's time to turn around and go back and return that favor. And yeah, shit, I can remember being drugged right back to the schoolyard. Well, man, out in the parking lot with this kid's dad. And, and the kid was older than me, and he just decided that I was an easy target. So my old man drugged my older brother, and here's where the fight's going to begin, guys. Your son's the same age as my oldest boy. Fight him. And if you don't, I'm going to kick your ass. So my old man was a pretty tough old bird, and it was. I just remember a lot of stuff like that. My older brother came home later in life. My older brother came home and had the cops kind of looking for him for a multitude of, it was petty shit. He had a 38 Ford with a Cadillac in it, and, man, he could rip and tear those streets. I mean, he was probably running low 11s, with that caddy. His biggest fear is he'd blow that LaSalle transmission or his rear end, but he'd just have that thing up, and he would terrorize the town. He'd even take my mom grocery shopping, and there'd be one street there that, you just couldn't get across during rush hour traffic. And, it's not like we had a lot of rush hour traffic, but that one main street. And he'd just R up, and he'd be popping that clutch and going sideways right across the street, and then into the parking lot at the store. And my mom would just be like terrorized, and there's a reason her hair turned white, and it was us boys, it's and I know people want to hear about the martial arts, but martial arts is really about spirit, and it's how you comprehend the threat of your environment that cultivates your spirit. And so if you ain't, living that kind of lifestyle, you ain't getting exposed to anything except for dojo martial arts, well, you're going to have a limited survivability skill set. And I kind of got educated. Like I said, it's up to your older brother. It's up to, it's even up to you looking for your, what's adventure to you? Is it just school sports? I think I could have became completely different person if all this other stuff wasn't going on around in my life, more of a controlled environment. My mom was never a single mom, but my dad was in the VA hospital when he had tuberculosis. So he was home sometimes, and the other times he was up at the Veterans Hospital laying in an iron lung. Of course, I had no idea what the hell that meant, except for later in life, you start paying attention in school and you realize that, wow, that's what made the old man tough, living through, World War II in Germany, and then coming home and not being able to really feed your family. He worked in the shipyards when he could. When he didn't, he was, in a hospital. He'd come home from the hospital. He'd bring about 3 or 4 soldiers with him because he had a crock of home brew brewing in the attic. And, I'm 12, 13 years old. I know how to bottle beer, make sure Kelly or Ron, Ron's my older brother, make sure those little bastards, got a couple cases of beer bottled up. Well, for my older brother, that was just a great opportunity to suck on the hose before, he siphoned it out of a 50-gallon vat, and he'd suck on that hose and he'd be shit-faced, and Mom didn't really care because I was carrying down 6-packs or 12-packs as they go, and, she'd be shit-faced by the time we were done, but, yeah, crazy. Yeah, I guess things were a little bit different at the Worden household,
So you went from all that street experience. How did you get involved with the military and training them?
Oh, gosh. Well, I had my gym. I'd left, I was with Ed Lewis for a long time, and he was a kind of a streety kid. There's no doubt about it. He was from the other side of the Main Street and kind of the east side of Tacoma, and he'd been in quite a bit of shit, and there was shootings at those times, and a black kid in the neighborhood where there was a lot of bikers, so he had he had experienced this stuff. He was under Steve Armstrong, and actually we had a national karate record when long before AAA was around or Atlantic Team was around, that type of thing. So being rated back then was pretty tough to do. So I'd trained with Ed and lived with him for about 8 years, and so we ravaged, gotten a lot of shit, man. Oh man, there's just some good stories to tell on that. And I'll share this one because it's a real hell raiser, hair raiser too. And I went out, and Ed couldn't go out that night, so I went out by myself, and I was chasing girls and found one, and I left my car over at a friend of mine's house. And the next morning, I went over to get my car, and I said, "Hey, man, where's Dennis?" Well, there's about 6 guys in the house, and that was never a big issue, but these were different guys, and I had recognized at least 1 or 2 of them and didn't really care for them personally, and it was kind of a party house. And next thing you know, here's Dennis's old lady walking out of the bedroom. Looked like she'd been hammered all night. I don't know, by 6 guys or just the one that was following her with his shoes in his hand. And I'm like, well, where's my buddy? And, well, he's at the hospital. And so I didn't say shit. I just went to the hospital, and I said, "Hey, man, what's going on? Who's that?" Well, even you, Steve. After we had this conversation, even though we may have never met, you will recognize my voice when I say hi. And so it really upset me that he didn't even recognize my voice, and I had to go, man, I choked up a little bit, and it's, "Hey, man, it's me, Kelly." And this guy got in a bad wreck years ago, and steering wheel, he was a hot rodder, and wrecked his car, and the steering wheel went in through his chest and broke all his lower support ribs and all that. So he was kind of a hunched over, skinny little bastard. And, but I used to deliver papers at his house, and he was always nice to me. He was older than me, about my sister's age. And I just said, "Hey, all I could say was, 'Hey, man, it's me, Kelly. You don't want that bastard at your house, do you?' And I just assumed, because he had his shoes in his hand and walking out of Dennis's bedroom, just assumed that, yeah, something happened that shouldn't have happened. So I'm heading back over there, and I'm going, well, I'll stop and pick up Ed. No. He's still on probation, for a shooting. It's my life. Some things I probably shouldn't say or share. I don't hide anything about what happened from my life, because that's part of the education that is so important. Anybody can teach somebody a back fist or a front kick or something like that, but nobody can tell them a reason not to do this and not to do that. And look them in the damn eye while you're doing it, and maybe then we could prevent some of this juvenile crime. But, hey, we don't have to go there. I want to finish this story. So I said, no, he's still on probation. And his old man's a tough son of a bitch. He was in the Korean War. He only had one arm. He was part of the killing fields over there. And, some real shit happened to him. So I wasn't about to tangle with his old man and go over there late, and try to roost out Ed. And so I was like, well, I'll go to Dave's. And I said, no, Dave will grab his shotgun. Somebody will really get hurt. And, well, by the time I got to my destination, I'd ran out of friends and ideas of who could back my play without either getting in trouble or causing more trouble than what we needed. So, hey, I just kind of entered the house, and hey, there he is right there sitting on the couch. I just lit him up with a few, "Hi, how are you?" Kicked him in the head, pounded on him till his ears bled, and smacked a couple of these other guys that thought they were going to jump off the couch. And the old lady, his old lady grabs her phone, and I'm calling the cops. And that's all it was around then was landlines. So I just ripped that thing out of the wall and did what I had to do, and I was in my car. The only thing that was missing was a cape, man. Like, who was that masked man? And next thing you know, this guy, his dad, a one-legged biker, was looking for me. Had a shotgun on his three-wheeler, and he's roaming the neighborhood looking for me. So I decided to turn Well, I'm looking for him, and his name, and so my oldest son, his dad was the president of the Shifters at that time, and I raised his son, and I rarely asked him for anything. So I just called him up, and I said, I don't know who he is, but you tell him he keeps looking for me, we'll be calling him Stubby. Because if he's looking for me with the shotgun, well, we're accelerating the name of this game. And so, and the saga continues, because that's another thing that people don't realize is revenge is a vicious circle of violence. And, especially if it's inner circle, small town, or sections of town, and that's what Tacoma is, the sections of town. We had the badasses from the north end, the east side, the south end, and the west side, really. Never got over there too often, but we got some stories about that. There were some pretty girls there, and we liked the music in a certain nightclub, but hey, we're not going to go there right now. Anyway, I guess that kind of establishes, just some of the, I don't know, that's just one of the simple stories. And it's funny, I was down in Beverly Hills, and when Teddy Lukai passed away, and I was at a friend of mine's house, actually in Beverly Hills. Never thought I'd make it there, but that's a great story too. But I got invited there, and so Lorenzo Lamas and some of these other interesting guys were around, and they got me drinking and toking a little bit. And this was years ago, and telling stories. They're like, hey, this is the shit movies are made out of. And I'm like, yeah, but some of these things I really don't want to tell publicly. This was probably 20 years ago. And today it doesn't really matter much, shit. It's all in the inner circle archives anyway. But, so really, the question was, how did I get involved with the military? Well, I had a gym, and I had this reputation. And so military guys started coming to my gym, and they wanted knife. And I was like, well, I do Filipino stuff. I really don't do a lot of knife. I do stick. And one of the guys was Filipino. And actually, Colin Powell's son-in-law. He's no longer married to Colin Powell's daughter. One thing I've learned about Filipino men is you don't piss those guys off. You don't piss off the women either, because they never forget, so it's hard to forgive. And so anyway, he'd show up and he'd bring sticks, and we'd close the curtains and we'd transfer the sticks to blade. And I guess I was establishing that reputation and that skill set all at the same time. The military taught me how to kill. Soldiers asking me what to do. I was afraid of guns because I was a crazy son of a bitch. And I knew that, a bullet is unforgiving. A knife is very intimidating, and you could control the wounds. You could learn to defang the snake. You can hit a guy in the thigh with a small buck knife and wound that guy enough to where he ain't fighting back, and you could beat the shit out of him to the level that you needed to establish communication skills. And one of my instructors basically said, don't let him go unless you put him in the hospital. It gives him time to think about, coming back to the scene and lighting your ass up again, coming back looking for more. So you got to still the fear of God in somebody so that they don't come looking for you. And even then, could be 3 years, could be 5 years. Somewhere along the line, if you're still in the same hometown, you're going to cross paths. So it's kind of scary because my daughter's a bartender, and she tends bar in a neighborhood that's pretty aggressive. my little brother got in a conflict and blew a guy's leg off with a shotgun. And shit, he was wearing a three-piece suit. He was part of the Young Democrats, they got Senator Scoop Jackson elected, Senator Rasmussen, Governor Dixie Lee Ray, So he was out of his element. It was my older brother that said, hey, go get the shotgun. He had a problem with somebody. He was too drunk to drive, and he sent my little brother to, get the shotgun. And he pulled up on a I really never made this story very public, but, armed as society is today, sometimes you just don't fuck with people out in the middle of the street. And the guy was blocking the road, and my little brother came up behind him, and this guy pulled his knife out, told him, hey, F off. And, so my little brother didn't know what to do, got kind of freaked out when the guy pulled up, about climbed through the driver's window, fanning this knife in his face. And so he kicked the door open, the guy went flying, and the shotgun came out, and he popped one off in the sky and said, now move your car. And the guy grabbed the barrel and pulled it. Said, yeah, right. Pulled it and blew his own leg off. Nobody to blame but his own ignorance and stupidity. So when they say don't bring a knife to a gunfight, well, sometimes it's okay if you know what the hell you're doing other than intimidating. And so intimidation, a knife against a shotgun at close quarter, well, I have a feeling that the shotgun's going to win. And it did. So, bottom line is, I drink at home and I drink alone. And if I go out in public, I'm aware of what the hell's coming at you, because revenge is, me and my little brother look alike in many respects. He's dead now. He died of cancer. But I don't know what happened to the other kid. Well, if I see a dude coming up on me, walking a little bit awkward and sideways, and he thinks he's closing on me, well, I'm going to close on him. And so you just got to be aware of everything, especially if you're living in the same town. And so, there again, another story where, martial and common sense hopefully have to come together along with some experience. I often say, I didn't have to die to realize that the shit in the neighborhood I was running in and, things I thought was fun could lead to somebody else's death or incarceration. And so, martial arts continues to grow, but that's why the military was looking for me, is because I had a common sense approach on, the environmental threats. I had a conversation with command out of Fort Lewis. Special Forces USASOC commanders had come up to Fort Lewis to see what the heck was going on up there with their personal training for the Special Forces. And I just said, hey, we're spending lots of money. Braden, come on, give me a break. That's my dog's name. Somebody's out in the parking lot, But so I said, we spend all this money on training, but a soldier could be out of uniform. Now he's got short hair and he's walking across the parking lot, maybe with his wife, but somebody could recognize that, hey, this guy's just too clean cut, and, let's bunk him off. He looks like he's got $1. Or he's transitioning country to country, and they know he's an American. So his hand-to-hand skills and his ability to improvise survival skills with, I don't care if it's a bag of groceries and what's inside it, or it's deployment of a knife, or it's common sense and go, hey, I need concealed weapon permit. when I'm, you know, not on duty, because people would target, and right after Vietnam, the long hairs and just a lot of people were targeting soldiers because they're too clean cut. They were pissed off at them about the war. They were just pissed off. Everybody was pissed off at that time. So a soldier could be easily a target. And so that was really how I approached these guys. I was like, hey, man, you guys are a target all the time. And they were like, wow, you know what? You're right. And so that was kind of how I looked at it. And, when I was training there, jiu-jitsu was coming in, and everybody thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, it is pretty cool. When you can ever find yourself barefoot and a pair of pajamas rolling around on a mattress, mats or however you want to look at it. And, if you're doing all that shit, if you're fighting and you're barefoot, because if you were at your house, there'd be a gun or a knife or something strategically positioned. So if you were startled in the night, you'd have access to a weapon to engage, whoever's breaking into your house. And, people were like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And, I pissed off. Was out there with the Ranger Battalion, and I pulled a knife, and I said, all right, 3 soldiers, step up here and show me how you're going to wrestle me to the ground for the Ranger Battalion. Well, you guys are pointing at, what the fuck are you doing wrestling on the ground? And using that as a strategy. I mean, we may go down in the ground on combat, but hey, if there's concrete, gravel, or rocks, you better do a gator spin while you're on your way to the ground and bounce his head off the concrete, deploy a knife, and neutralize the damn threat. So you can get up and protect your team members if you ain't got enough damn sense to protect yourself. And that applies to a civilian too, because that's your wife, whether it's a team member. And sometimes you have to look at it like that. Sometimes you have to educate the people you're training to the point that, okay, you don't give a shit about your own life. That's evident because you ain't preparing for the real threats of society. So, if they get past you, they're going to rape and kill your wife and your children. How does that make you? Where's your attitude now, boy? You gotta light these guys up. And sometimes my approach just isn't the thing. Martial artists are looking for David Carradine in a corner to sit in and meditate about how bad they are while they're wearing, their uniform and their multicolored belt and kicking somebody's ass that's dressed just like them. The real violence is out in the street. Damn, I don't know. So in that regard, I could hide behind my experience and never reveal it, but it's not being fair to, the few people who want to train with me, because the rest of them don't want that other kind of violence. They don't want to be exposed to that kind of shit. They just want to learn martial arts. I think you guys are really confused out there.
Sorry, I was going to say maybe that might be a segue. We could talk about the natural spirit method then?
A little too much esoteric. And there again, people are too damn soft-skinned, and I'm going to sue your ass. Well, go ahead. I ain't got shit anyway, or not. You know what? I'll give it all away to provide a principle and a service to my community. And if we're offended by that, well, don't go out of your neighborhood, because people are going to start with verbal intimidation just before they kick your ass. And sometimes verbal aggression is the only way you're going to retaliate or build your spirit to respond to the physical threat that's coming at you. And, if you don't know a few cuss words that fire you up, like, hey, you're banging my wife, or my girlfriend, or both. Hey! That always pisses off my wife, but I say, yeah, if you got your girlfriend with you, or your wife, or both of them, because the Datu rolls that way, I'll get slapped when I get home. Anyway, but, it's kind of funny. Natural spirit. Dr. Yip, Waipo Yip named that. He's an inner city Hong Kong guy. His sister, his parents were both educators. Dad was a 10.18 weapon practitioner. His mom was a collaborative Wusu practitioner. They were educators. And kids could live, and they were well-to-do. They weren't like Yip Man. He was basically an uncle to the Yip clan, and not a really well-to-do uncle. And it's my understanding, and no harm, no foul. But that kind of established why he lived in a small. It's not like the movie where he's got this huge, beautiful estate down there. My understanding, he trained off a rooftop, and he wasn't very well to do. But anyway, Dr. Yip, his parents, his sister was the highest ranked female under Gogen Yamaguchi in Gojo-Ryu, and Dr. Yip decided after he had done quite a few different arts that he wanted to be Taekwondo. There was 2 Taekwondo teachers that came into Hong Kong, one in inner city and one on the other side of the Yangtze River, or however you pronounce that. I don't do terminology, and I don't pronounce Chinese or any other language very well. I barely speak English. I'm a white boy that teaches or speaks Ebonics. Inner city. And I'm proud of that. It's a language unto itself. Natural spirit kind of evolved through. Well, I was changing. My art was taught in a boxing ring, sometimes with chairs in the ring. Turn the lights off. 2 or 3 guys. That's how we utilized the boxing ring. Sometimes just sparring, but in a regular class, that's how I kind of set the scenario up. Nightclubs are dark. There's chairs and tables, and there's walls. Well, the ropes were the walls, and the tables and chairs were just tools that we could. We weren't hitting each other with them per se. Kick a chair into somebody's base, into their shins, and as they lean over, well, hey, good place for a round kick or left hook, right cross, and we weren't. We were educating each other. We weren't, trying to eliminate student body, but just how you do it and how you did it. And, you had to establish a certain degree of understanding and skill before, and control. I did have an old saying like, okay, guys, you ready? No cup, no mouthpiece, no control. We'd kind of laugh and snicker, but hey, after we were done, we'd all go to the tavern and have some more fun, drink a couple beers, and when the bar closed, it was time to go home. And so Dr. You'd be like, well, what is your where are you going? I goes, well, hey, it has to be natural. Meaning, I was working in a body shop, custom painting cars. My knees just, after a day of painting body, my knees just couldn't take high kicking and all the stretching. That was fun and cool on a developmental path to where, I got to learn how to kick. And then pretty soon you're still got to pay bills, and I got to acknowledge what my body's doing to me. So, the Muay Thai stuff started coming in, and so I didn't put much emphasis on head kicks. I figured my sweeping skills provided that opportunity, punch high, sweep low, and if you needed to kick them in the head, well, you do it on the way while they're going down or after they're down. The only rules is You're not trying to kill anybody. You're trying to dominate. Thankfully, I never did do a lot of scary things. That I reflect on. Hey, man, I could have killed that guy there. Oh, I could have killed that guy. That guy probably almost died. Oh shit, Cops are at the front door. God, and thankfully I wasn't an extreme drinker. I was a toker, man. I could control my emotions at least through the usage of marijuana as opposed to alcohol. And people just, Joe, I can't believe he admitted that he was a stoner. You know what? Martial artists and people have been getting high since the beginning of time. So about all I could say is shut up and, mind your own business and, find your own path in life, but don't dictate mine. Oh, okay. So he's wandering a little bit, but, natural spirit, it's got to be natural, because if you get injured, or you don't have time to stretch and, all this other martial mindset stuff, you got to be able to respond and react at a moment's notice. If there's beer on the floor, if you're in the bathroom, well, there goes 50% of the techniques that you were working on that had to be pretty, especially for kata and form and things like that. And I really admire kata and form, and there's reasons for that, other than the fact that somebody gets a cool trophy at the end of the tournament. But form is the one place where you can rip a guy's head off, shit down his throat, and not have to fill out a police report or go to jail. People don't understand that. If I'm dry firing and practicing acquisition and deployment of my knife or my sidearm, well, that's form. So people have a misinterpretation of what form is. If I'm a boxer and I'm shadow boxing, well, damn, that's form. But we just look at it as, I could be just a form. Well, let me say it up. I could be a form sissy, where that's all I do is form, because I'm afraid to get out there and fight. So I'm a pretty boy, or I'm so pretty that my techniques don't mean shit. They're the fastest. And look at me standing on one leg and doing a windmill 50 kick flurry. Jesus Christ. In what neighborhood do you think that's goddamn going to work? Try that in the bathroom with a little bit of piss and beer on the floor when a guy's slamming your head into the urinal. That going to work for you? I don't think so. But here again, bringing martial survival from the dojo to the real life, concrete, snow on the ground, parking lot, cars, crazy assholes that don't play by the rules. Well, what rules are those? It's a misinterpreted element, because we have candy-ass teachers that are so concerned about martial styles that don't apply to our environment. Dojo's cool and Kempo's cool and Shotokan's cool, but how does that apply to Kelly, Worden, and Tacoma in wherever I have to go, whether it's Home Depot or wherever I have to go, the city park. Geez, the dog park. Everybody protects their dog. Shit, I've seen several good-sized scuffles and ass whoopings at the dog park because, your dog just attacked mine. No, he didn't. Next thing you know, you got two men fighting and the dogs are, not managed. And, geez, so, again, that's natural. That's an element of natural. So it's not a stylized path, but it could be. You know, if you understand how to apply martial intent to instinctual and natural movement, natural attributes that don't need, you know, a warm up. You know, how can I fire? How can I fire with real intent and good technical skills to functional and efficient targeting on my opponent without ripping muscles out, you know, or tearing something, or, you know, the threat of falling down and cracking my head on the concrete, and then having somebody so close in my proximity that while I'm pissing and moaning and trying to get off the ground due to my own stupidity, I'm getting kicked in the head by 2 or 3 guys. You know, and I couldn't say that unless it happened, or better yet, unless I've seen it happen. You know, when I'm in that environment. So, you know, it gets back down to, I didn't always have to have my ass kicked to know that playing pool and doing this and that and opening your mouth and looking at the dude's old lady or whatever, you know, will lead to violence depending on what level of control the guy that I'm engaged with has himself, you know, control over, you know, his faculties, his comprehension of what's this going to lead to. Yeah, you're going to beat my ass in this bar, but if I can get home and get a 2x4 and you ain't left the bar yet, I'm breaking all the windows out of your fucking car and I'm waiting for you to come out and adjust my attitude again. And again, you know, nobody likes an ass whipping, and if you do it in my neighborhood, well, I got to reestablish some kind of male dominance. I might piss on your tire too, but geez, this surely doesn't sound like martial arts, does it?
It sounds like reality to me.
Spirit. Yeah, and natural spirit, and there again, see, so you know, that's why you have the natural, and then spirit. Well, what does your spirit tell you that you need to do? What is it you need to be? How do you need to respond? Do you have your wife as a threat against her? Are you concerned that, you know, that you're in a parking garage and somebody closed on you? You know, you're going into a parking garage. Good, you know what? Pull your pocket knife, you know, carry it in a reverse grip so nobody can see it, and be ready for, you know, you're going up to a cash machine, you know, and there again, you know, maybe keep some cash at home so that, you know, after you've had a couple beers and you want to go back out and party, but you're going to go to a cash machine at midnight. Well, you know what? You're lucky I don't know where you are. I might rob your ass just to educate you. And of course, I'm just using that. You know, I'm just bullshit. I'm not going to rob anybody. I don't play that game. But, you know, we don't know where, you know, they keep telling us that society's heading for another financial breakdown, and it only takes about 2 or 3 days until, you know, geez. Matter of fact, I told the police officer that's guarding Fred Meyer, walked in, you know, got a fixed blade on my left hip, and I got my Glock on my right, and I kind of pulled my coat back because I didn't want to startle the cop, but I just said, you know what, I don't know if I brought enough ammo to shop at this store. You know? And he kind of laughed with me. He goes, yeah, no shit, man. He goes, sometimes I wonder if I could deploy fast enough to recognize the threat. You know, kind of like Eddie Murphy and the guy that walks into the bar in 48 hours and he's got a trench coat on. Well, it's Southern California, you know, and I think he beads of sweat because he had a trench coat on, but he was hiding that shotgun. Well, that's awareness, recognizing the threat. Damn, you know. So, you know, when we go someplace, we've got to be able to recognize the threat. You know, who looks spooky enough to just come unglued at a moment's notice. And, how can we tell if he's carrying, packing, or what? Is his coat long enough to conceal his waistband? Is he thicker up underneath the arms, like he's got a shoulder holster rig on? It's those type of things. That's why I don't drink in public. I want to know. I want to be the guy that's ready to go. And if I have to, and that's to protect others more than it is to protect myself. But hey, if I can't protect myself, I sure in the hell can't protect others. So common sense, awareness, listening, all your senses should be activated when you're going through a store. The kids crying and stuff, I've got children and I've got grandchildren, and I just don't like crying kids. I want to know why that kid's crying. Is that parent slapping that kid around? If he is, somebody's going to say something. There's going to be a conflict right there. You're looking at how the homeless guys are rolling in, and how many are rolling in? Well, a bunch of homeless guys running together. You can come in and create a real disturbance in one section of the store while the other guys are roosted in the other section. And there's only one security guard. Who's he going to engage? So I don't know, man. Your spirit's got to adjust and adapt to everywhere you're going, even if you're driving down the interstate. Well, shit, the road rage is a real popular thing. You gotta be able to pull over, let it go, let that guy go. Well, at least he's now in front of you. Now it's a sad state that maybe somebody else is going to become his victim, but you also got to follow the laws until something triggers the violence, and you have to, act, react, or phone home, Toto. But martial arts is really about survival, and I think that our day as teachers is coming, and I can only hope and pray. Even the sissy boy schools that don't do anything but tournament competition, and are more concerned about pretty boyness and stuff like that. There's a place for them, because those people in there have no understanding of violence, and they're really afraid of it. So the laws and the schools, because you little boys, stop that. We're taking away. I'm trying to think of the word my wife uses. We're emasculating the men of America. We're not. That's why the military need to go to grappling, because they're afraid to they're afraid to engage in boxing. They're afraid to, really engage in fighting. So here we have men that are in their 20s that have never been in a schoolyard scuffle, and we're throwing them out in the battlefield. Damn, we've sissified a lot of our young boys. And, Boy Scouts can't even carry a knife, a little pocket knife. And, we have to bring, men back into manhood and teach them what it really means to protect your family. Let's look at this on our educational board. People work really hard to make a lot of money and become really well-to-do so that they can dial 911 on their really cool phone. But they're not learning how to protect themselves or how to protect their family or even think protection skills. So even though they got all that money, well, who can they protect their family? No. Doesn't my opinion, all that money and that cool car, if you can't protect it, you can't back that play. somebody may take it away from you, or just target you. So we have to think in today's time, how do we become, the protector of our family again? And I think it's up to the government to make an armed society a polite society. Now, whether we're armed with hand-to-hand skills, or the ability to improvise a weapon, or the ability to use a recognized weapon, and that's a progressive state of survivability. But I'd prefer to engage somebody in hand-to-hand as opposed to really hurt somebody with a weapon.
Agreed.
But you have to stay coherent, meaning don't go out in public in an environment that potentially we know there's people out there that are armed, and then be too drunk or too intoxicated to recognize that something's going to break out here real soon, and it could be out on you or it could be out on somebody else. So escape and evasion is just as much a survival skill as engagement is. So,
Okay, can we? I wanted to. You touched on one subject there that I kind of wanted to dovetail into, because I was looking through your website, and I knew you had a line of knives that you've had designed, but I didn't realize you also had all the rubber trainers and the palm wrenches and whatnot. Can you talk about some of those implements?
Yeah, sure. Years ago I designed the impact karambit, and it was a fun little tool, It just came about. I was doing some drawing, and one of my students is a machinist, and Chino Santiago. He made it for me in aluminum, and I was like, "Wow, that's really cool," but I don't want to hit anybody with that damn thing. And so Tim Wagner, owner of Blade Tech, we're longtime friends, and I said, "Wow, hey, it'd be cool if I could make this in some kind of a high-density plastic." So, Vince Ford, who was one of the original knife designers and machinists for Spyderco, Vince was up here working with Tim, and Vince has passed away since, but he made the mold, and next thing you know, I got that thing out. It was really popular, impact karambit, and people started to understand it. Ernie Emerson, Steve Tarani, I gave all those guys. I was making them by hand, and I was just giving them out to people I'd do teaching with. And I can't say that they follow suit, but I'm kind of one of those guys that's maybe 3 steps behind when it comes to, hey, well, this is a great idea. I think I'll market this, But so Ernie did come out with something, not an impact. He came out with an edged weapon. Tech asked me if I'd do an edged weapon one, and I was making some edged high-density polymer bladed versions of my impact karambit for the Israeli military through Jeff Jaffe, who owns Tech, just happens to be Jewish. So I was making those, but I didn't want to turn a karambit loose on the public. I just felt that, we're being scrutinized for a regular knife, so I didn't really want the karambit to come out, a bladed karambit. But hey, evolution is what it is, and Tarani came out with his, and Ernie came out with his, and that type of thing. So now I felt that they're reading my tool, impact karambit. So because now it's an impact tool and customs and airport security, things like that, people are starting to recognize it. So that's when I transitioned it to the travel wrench and the high density plastic. It's really cool. You can see it at my kellywarden.com or www.kellywarden.com website, and then from there, it's a wrench now, and it actually works as a wrench. So, but my comedy line off that is it loosens small nuts and big nuts alike. And so then I made the safety wrench, and it's kind of a Okinawan version. There again, boy, I tell you, people ask me, hey, can you make that in titanium, and could you do this? And, there's that self-defense tool that looks like an owl head, and it's got the two steel spikes, and, God, I'm concerned. I'm not so concerned about my safety. I'm concerned about the stupid guy that gets in a fight with a guy that's going to pull that out and hammer him. You could put that through a guy's skull. I look at someone, maybe it's because I'm 65 years old now, and at least I've survived this long without killing anybody, even though I've had some pretty, close calls with just, I probably shouldn't have did that. I can't believe, the human body is pretty resilient, but dang, there's a lot of weapons no matter where you look around, even if it's just the pin and you don't know how to target the body and you take a guy's eye out, or, you stab him in the windpipe and, hey, you just don't have any medical knowledge or self-defense, hitting the brain fart there, but immediate medical knowledge to stop or to get this guy breathing again, and that type of stuff. And so I am kind of concerned with the fact that, geez, what I teach is vicious and ruthless, but what other people teach is vicious and ruthless. So the weapons are spooky, but it's a spooky society. So moving on, the impact tools provide a certain degree of confidence and reinforcement, empowerment, force escalation. They're very quick, deployed, and if you understand targeting, you can neutralize the threat without doing an extreme amount of damage, just enough damage to get away and protect yourself and protect others. Now we go to, that's an impact tool, and now we go to the edged weapons, and knives are just beautiful in their simplicity and so on and so forth. And a lot of things could be a knife. Nail can be a knife, and if they're going to legalize weapons, they might as well close every hardware store and a sewing boutique and grocery stores. Ed Hart would jokingly say, "Hey, he only went shopping like really late at night. He didn't want to be recognized, or he's out shopping getting food. He doesn't want to go into conversations with anybody, or he doesn't want to engage anybody. So he just did his shopping early in the morning, or really late at night." And so the first thing I put in my cart, and I was like, "What's that?" And he goes, "Canned goods." I goes, Yeah. We all need to, get our shelf stocked. Oh no, they make good projectiles, Kelly. I was like, "Oh, okay." So, that was a kind of a humorous way to enlighten me to, that makes real good sense. And but knives, gosh, very intriguing. And I got injured, auto accident, and I couldn't do martial arts. And a couple of guys are like, "Man, you're just a mean son of a bitch. If you ain't working out, you need to release some of that stress. And why don't you make a knife?" And I was like, "Well, how do you make a knife?" And they handed me a file and a piece of steel and a couple wood slabs, and that's how I made my first knife. Was the file. I filed down that steel until I got the shapes I needed and wanted. And, then I took the first one to the Eugene Knife Show, and I bumped into Pat Crawford. And I said, "Hey, man, could you turn this knife into a folder for me, Pat?" "Well, I sure can," So that was our first kind of collaboration, and it was before collaborations were so popular. So it was just him really doing me a favor, and then I took it from there. Went through Tim Wagner, and from him I already knew Mike Gregory. Mike Gregory's, Hollywood celebrity type of thing. I met Mike Gregory through Jeffrey Lewis, who was Clint Eastwood's buddy in all the movies, Every Which Way But Loose. The guy turns his baseball cap around. It's who you know and all your connections that link everything to. I was writing for the magazine. I had the videos with Paladin Press. The magazines I was writing for different, fighting knives, and so I was reviewing other people's knives, and so it's all the things that I did for people, just in what it is I do. "Hey, man, I really like your knives. Can I do a review on it?" "Oh, yeah, cool. Oh, there's a favor. Here's a favor. There's a favor." And so when I was injured with the auto accident, people just helped me out to help me make, better judgment calls on how I'm going to financially survive. And so that's how the knives came into play. And then I just started making more knives and, designing things, and some things I couldn't do. I can make fixed blades. I'm not a folder guy. I could put a folder together with the pieces, but right now I just don't have the machining capabilities and things like that. So I can make a crude folder. I'm not going to make a beautifully well-machined folder. So I'm a fixed blade guy. So yeah, that's how I came about the skill sets of making knives. Of course, knife was one of the reasons the military was also coming at me, wanting to learn those skill sets. Interesting enough, I would teach machete and big knife to the military guys. Well, when they go to the Philippines, it's not the inner city stuff. That these guys are out in the bush, and the Filipino, military guys they're out in the bush too. So the big blade skills, and I'm pretty well known even in the Philippines, and so the soldiers had mentioned that they're training with me, that they have these skills, and people were soldier. These guys are impressed with the fact that American Special Forces guys have nice skills. They were really impressed. Down in South America, one of my students, Special Forces, was training somebody down in South America, and he's always playing with his war tack, his Worden tactical folder, and guy says, "Wow, could you teach me some of that?" And this guy soldier in South America. And so Romero went about just sharing with him, universal movements, Rampida, Banda, Cruzada, classical thrusting, different things like that, how to pass, how to engage. And then the guy was getting deployed and going somewhere, and Romero had established a real friendship with him, so he just gave him my knife. And he figured he'd get one when he got back to the U.S. And so this guy came back, months later, and says, "That knife saved my life, and so did the things that you taught me." So it was just, and things like that, word gets around, that, hey man, stuff guys learned at Fort Lewis, they're teaching down in Central America, down, here and there and everywhere. And, so, yeah, I guess that's some of the things I got popular. I mean, I had soldiers come up and tell me he was over in Afghanistan, and came around a corner, and there he was face to face. And the guy jammed his firearm so he couldn't go with it, and had a knife, and so he had a fixed blade on his hip, and he was able to deploy that. He went close quarter engaged. He goes, "It was your system, and it saved my life." I was like, "No, I'd probably shit and fell back in it. You know, you're the soldier. I'm just the teacher, and I appreciate you acknowledging. I owe you a case of beer. It was your stuff that saved my life." I said, "No, just wait right here." I went and got a case of beer, and I paid for that and gave it to him. I said, "Here, man, you saved your life with whatever I taught you, but you made it work and you made it function." And it wasn't the first time that he'd mentioned, he'd contacted me. He contacted me actually when he was in the Philippines. He was in a bar drinking, and they're again recognized because of the haircut, because of how Americans look. And I come to find out that it was a couple Turks, and they were buying these Americans. "Oh, it's great, and they're buying these Americans some drinks, and they got pretty well shit-faced, and next thing you know, they leave. There's 3 of them, and they're pretty much holding up their buddy, and as they walked out the door, one of these guys hit him dead in the face with a brick. Broke his face up. Blood was everywhere. He took off running down the street. Well, my buddy, Bill, took off running down the street after him. He was a sergeant major. Pretty tough, all unto himself, unto his own. And he came around the corner, got hit with a 2x4, split him from the side of his face, behind his ear, all the way around to the front of his face. Blood was so bad he couldn't hardly see anything, and this guy was going to swing and hit him again. Well, that's swinging chairs and throwing shit, and, using the wall and vehicles and the motor pool, and, all of that was part of what it is I was teaching out of Fort Lewis. And Rains, we would literally go outside in the snow when the jiu-jitsu guys were laying in there on the mats. And I was like, "Hey, they're like, it's raining, it's snowing, it's cold out here." I said, "Well, where are you going to be in a conflict, But so environment was really something that I emphasized. And so, Bill engaged this guy, and he had thrown one against the wall and kicked one, and said he was going to pull his knife, and he was ready to go, but he realized he couldn't see shit, and that escape was a better option. So he just turned around and booted back to where he was, and by that time, not sure who the third guy was that didn't get hit with the brick. He had signaled one of the small vehicles up in the Philippines. Never been to the Philippines myself, so like a small taxi of some sort. Headed to the hospital to get him some stitches and get the other guy, his face taken care of. And, I guess by the time they got to the hospital, the back of that little taxi was just full of blood, just crazy. But that was 2 stories just from the one soldier. He really felt, the training that we did with throwing people through against walls and, evading shit, ducking and moving and all the things we were doing, like wherever we were. If we were in a building training, tables were turned and chairs were, thrown, and, and then again, I didn't have injuries out of Fort Lewis. interesting enough, the soldiers that were doing the jiu-jitsu, and I'm not down in jiu-jitsu, but it's not a sport. Life is not a sport. So these guys were getting each other down on the ground and trying to get the arm bar so they could get the tap. I could give a shit less about the tap. I want the break. So if I put a guy in an arm bar, I lock and disengage and, drop my weight and, simulate that everything's a break. I'm not interested in trying to get a guy that's as strong as me or stronger. We sit there and struggle until I tear a ligament or something else. It's a 12-man team. If one guy gets injured, you got the rest of the team that don't have that member of the team. Now they got to find another member. That 12-man team may not be able to deploy, and the guy that got hurt, well, he may not have a team because he'll be replaced. So it makes no sense to turn this into a UFC match unless you're going to go out in the concrete, throw some broken glass down and say, yeah, let's see how this shit works in real time. By the way, I got a boot knife, I got a sidearm, I got body armor on. You shoot for my legs, what are you running into? Body armor. Oh, interesting. If you're closing on me, how did I let you get that close to me? If we are in combat and I'm going into, grappling mode, how many weapons did I fail to engage? How many weapons, weapons failure did I have? Well, my long gun, my short gun, my knife, there's 3. My boots, there's 4 or 5. My fists, 6, 7. My elbows, my knees, my body armor, my helmet, those are all weapon failures. And now I'm grappling. Wow. How aware am I? And I know you're closing real quick, and part of it is, detainment. That's what you may need to detain somebody, so you're closing in on somebody else. And but there's just a lot of things that people are misinterpreting when it comes down to urban warfare and what it is you need to do to survive or to neutralize the threat.
All right, today on The Artists of Motion, my guest has been Kelly Worden. I've had a wonderful chat with him for the last hour or so. And what I wanted to do now here at the end of our show is to turn it over to you, Mr. Worden. So what message would you like to send out to our listening audience? And then I want to give you the opportunity to, I call it the hashtag plug your stuff moment. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you? Where do they find your products, all that good stuff?
Sure. Well, chances are I possibly could have offended a few people out there in the audience. If so, I'm thankful that I was able to at least reach you and maybe give you some things to think about. Oftentimes I go, if I haven't offended you, give me a little bit more time. I surely will. It's just another way to provide a educational forum, because a lot of people don't think the way I do, and the way I do process information is due to the individuals that I've been exposed to. So it's not always me. I've had some great teachers, and Jesse Glover, Richard Bastilio, Remy Presas, Ted Lukai, Leonard Trigg, and the list goes on. There's just some great guys. Not all of them were my teachers. I kind of consider them my mentors, because all martial arts are good. So I had a martial mindset, and I had martial skill. I loved Shotokan Karate. I loved the Ishin-Ryu. There wasn't any martial arts that I did that I didn't truly enjoy, but there were holes and voids in it. So I use seminars to go plug that hole and plug that void. And then it's not like I needed to be saturated with a complete style. I just wanted a piece that gave me the ability to think and process. If I have too many pieces, how am I going to blend that in to where it fits? I just need some technical insight so that I know that I have that void or I have that hole. And then I want to create that Jeet Kune Do, that freedom of expression, that apply what is useful. And that there is, natural spirit. And as I traverse through life, everything has to change. I just went through a bout of cancer, and I had a stem cell transplant, and, wow, get him now, he's down. Well, yep, that's true. Physically, I'm not going to engage a person with the physical prowess that I once had. So I'm going to have to stab or shoot that if I can't talk my way out of it. So verbal judo and conflict avoidance is very important, because I don't want to engage, the court systems, or be sitting in jail and, bump into somebody that may have a thorn in their side from when I was a strapping young buck, So life changes, you must change, you must adapt, and adapt your martial arts as well. My products are who and what it is I am. You get a hold of me at kellyworden.com. Another website I have is Worden Defense. Videotapes are an important aspect. I know YouTube's out there, and there's a lot of things. Professor Presas said to me, "Oh, you have the computer mind." No, man, I film every session that I can, and I watch and see what it is you do, and then I adapt. And Professor Presas was, to me, Filipino martial arts is Jeet Kune Do with less restrictions. People are so concerned about Jeet Kune Do because Bruce Lee did this and Bruce Lee did that. Well, the only thing that Bruce Lee did for me that I could really absorb was he adapted whatever was practical. I don't give a shit about, the techniques that Bruce Lee did, because I'm not, 137 pounds and 5'7". I'm 6'2", 240 pounds. So I don't move like Bruce Lee. People go, "Oh boy, doesn't he move like Bruce Lee?" Well, geez, just think how good he'd be if he mimicked himself. So people are really strange, in my opinion. They're always looking for something other than who they are internally. So be yourself. Learn to be natural. Adapt to the environment. Adapt to your age. Adapt to the threat. Be aware. Realize that violence is going to be more prevalent as society continues to be unpredictable, and more laws are being passed to disarm society and disarm the people, and people are afraid of everything. So, you got to be able to protect yourself to protect your family, and life is not a sport. So look around. Avoid the contract situation, support the school or support the teachers that you want to support. I don't do contracts because I don't want to be, I don't want to make you feel that you have to pay for information that you can find. Do seminars, do workshops, and then practice and train. Get a training group, get a training partner. My school is in my home, in my garage. It's a big garage, and we train privately. So, but I am accessible, and it's more important that you become a natural practitioner of your own attributes and make it happen that way. I want to thank Steve for giving me this opportunity. I have a feeling I was long-winded in a lot of things, a lot of stories and information I shared with you, but sometimes it's good information and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it doesn't apply to you. Fast forward, rewind, whatever you got to do. But I enjoyed the time, so thank you very much, Steve, and the listeners out there. Looks like Steve's doing a great job at providing instructors that could enrich your life and enrich your survivability, and that's an important element of martial combat, and we all should have that. So appreciate it. You guys take care. If you need anything, contact me, Kelly Worden at www.kellywarden.com. There you go, man.
Right on. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time out today.
Sure. No worries.
That was a hefty dose of reality-based information there from Datu Worden. So had a great chat with him. He's got a lot of really, really interesting stuff to say. Got a lot of really solid experience. So happy to have him, and make sure you check out his products, because he's got a line of really cool defensive studies programs, as well as his own line of knives, and he's got that travel wrench that goes with it as well. So good stuff. Not sure who's going to be on our next episode yet. We're still working through that kind of stuff. As soon as we figure it out, we'll get that episode up and running. But we had a great episode this week. So if you like what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe on iTunes or subscribe on Google Play, or you can subscribe on podbean.com. All kinds of different ways for us to get heard these days, and I'm loving doing this podcast. So thank you to everybody who's helped us out. Thank you to all of our guests. That's it for this week. I'm Steve Zelazowski for the Artist of Motion podcast.